Joe Mazzulla is an absolute madman, but he's loved by the players, and he's an NBA champion. It's the Joe Mazzulla appreciation episode right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season, drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in locked on after. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and Jace, how it started, raising banners, how we finish. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you covered every single day, Monday through Friday, still daily, still going strong through June, through July, every day, Monday through Friday. August and September, we'll dial it back to 3 days a week. But still here, just because the season is over, just because the parade is Friday, and like that doesn't mean the podcast takes a break. These are this is a Monday through Friday podcast, so make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're on that YouTube page. Make sure you're in the comments talking about what's on your mind, talking about the show. Today we're talking about Joe Mazzulla, so share your thoughts on Joe Mazzulla, whether you didn't like him before and like him now. Maybe some people still don't like him. I don't know what's not to like. He's an absolute madman, and I think he's a super, super interesting character, and he's a champion. So, hey, good for him. I'm John Karalis. If you're new to the show, I used to play a long time ago. Now I'm covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, and I am the author of Built Different, the commemorative book celebrating the Boston Celtics 2024 NBA Championship. Buy it right now at triumphbooks.com/CelticsWin. Use the code Celtics24 to get 25% off. Look for it in your stores around New England. If you are in the area, if in the New England area, look for it at your supermarkets, at your BJ Sam's Club, bookstores. It's everywhere you would find a commemorative book. Photo heavy, but stories from the season. So it's just celebrate the win. Buying my book. I will have eventually the opportunity to sell some of them signed on my website. Don't have that yet, but I will. And I will do book signings around New England over the course of the summer. So I'm going to try to do live podcasts so you can come listen to a podcast recorded live, maybe with some guests, maybe with some fan interaction, and then I'll do a book signing after that. So if you have a book and you're in the area, save it. I'll come on over. And I'll sign it. Okay, that's a lot. There's a lot of preamble here to the podcast. I don't want to take it all up because we got podcasting to do here. We're talking about Joe Mazzulla. Today's episode, by the way, is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase of last-minute tickets. All right, Joe Mazzulla. Today became the Joe Mazzulla appreciation episode because he did the Pardon My Take episode. He did the Low Post episode. And apparently he's just been walking around the North End with the Larry O'Brien trophy, just saying, hey, Boston, look at the trophy that we got. This is pretty nice, huh? And listen, I can't tell you what the motivation is for Joe. He might just sit there and be like, I wanted to take the trophy out for a nice Italian dinner. Joe is part Italian, and going out for a nice meal. Just him, Larry, his wife, and, just some great Italian food. Maybe that was his motivation. Maybe he just wants to walk around the city of Boston and show everybody like, hey, this is yours. I don't know what motivates Joe sometimes, but this show, this entire podcast is just an appreciation of the absolute lunatic that he is. Before I get to that, I should just mention, I never addressed that Kristaps Porzingis is going to have surgery. Side note, like a hell of a side note. I expect that to be done shortly after the Celtics parade. He's going to be out for a few months after that. So I expect him to start to get back into basketball activities by the time training camp comes around. And so that might mean he's limited at the start of next season. Just that's going to be a discussion point at some point here. But I wanted to say it. I wanted to say it on the podcast that that's something that just keep in the back of your head. Porzingis, maybe sometime as soon as next week, will have surgery to repair the tear in his foot, and that's just going to take a little while for that all to heal. So it's not going to. It might impact the beginning of next season, but that's we'll cover that once we get a little bit more information. Okay, back to Joe Mazzulla, and I'm not sure where to start with him. I guess the place, as I sit here on YouTube with a photo that I took behind me of the confetti-covered Lucky logo with the Champions platform there. And if you look closely up there, there's a bunch of drinks that have been left behind, finished bottles of champagne and beer and all of that stuff. Joe Mazzulla trying to, enjoy this moment. And he's just admittedly had, I don't want to say a hard time, but I think he's like, he is so in tuned to not letting success impact him, right? He said it on the Pardon My Take show, and it's a common theme for him. He said it at the end of his like the last quote from his post game 5 interview, where he was asked about, how have these two seasons challenged you and rewarded you? And he says, you need criticism, you need praise, you need expectation. All those things go into making who you are as a person, making who you are as people, as an organization. So just having the understanding that they're never going to go away. If someone tells you good job, that's just as dangerous as someone telling you you suck. But you need both of them in order to get to where you want to go. And there's no place I'd rather be. So Joe, philosophically, is very much you need the good and you need the bad. And often you need it at the same time to keep you grounded. You need the bad so you can appreciate the good, but you also need the bad to keep you grounded. You need the good so the bad doesn't keep you down, and the good also helps motivate you. And there's a yin-yang kind of scenario thing going on. And that's balance. That's just balance in the world, which is interesting because Joe, I think, is somewhat imbalanced in how far he's willing to go to get wins. I think. But the balance, and this is something I wholeheartedly believe in my own philosophical nature, which is why I identify with Mazzulla in a lot of ways. Like, I think our brains are wired similarly in our philosophical kind of approach. His brain is not wired. I am not wired like his in the absolute kind of madness that he will put himself through in pursuit of a goal. And I'll get to more of that in a little bit. I mean, he spent a week in the jungle tearing himself down and building himself back up. We'll get to that in a second. The balance is important. And I do believe you need bad to appreciate good. You need good to kind of outweigh the bad. And so that makes it hard for a guy like Joe Mazzulla to sit there and just like sit back and take a deep breath, look around and be like, I did that thing. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe he can get there. Maybe he is there. But I really do feel like every once in a while, you need to sit back when you accomplish something and go, I did that thing. There's nothing wrong with that, because you need to know that the work you've put in has led to something. And that to me is a motivating thing. But it's so interesting to me that Joe is like, one of his struggles is appreciating the moment for himself. He has no problem appreciating the moment for other people. I think he wants to cut himself down. Anytime he thinks, it's almost like he's allergic to the praise. Because the second he like buys into the praise, or he feels like buying into the praise, he's like, but it wasn't me. It was everybody. It was everybody that came before me. It's the players. It's not me. It's this. It's that. He's so afraid of the praise changing who he is as a person that he's not fully capable of appreciating what he's accomplished, which is you are a championship head coach for the Boston Celtics. How many of those guys are there? There's Red Auerbach, there's Bill Russell, there's Tommy Heinsohn, Bill Fitch, Casey Jones, Doc Rivers, Joe Mazzulla. 7 guys. Those are all the championship head coaches in Celtics history. Red started it. Bill Russell won a couple as a player coach. The youngest, the famously Joe Mazzulla, the youngest since Bill. Tommy Heinsohn took over and won in the 70s. Bill Fitch won with Larry Bird. Casey Jones took over after Bill Fitch left. And then there was that long stretch before Doc won one, and then this long stretch before Joe won one. So, and notable, I will say, on Juneteenth to note that Bill Russell, Casey Jones, Joe Mazzulla, a strong history of black head coaches winning championships in Boston. Very notable, and I think it's important for the history, the progression of black head coaches in the league, which Joe didn't want to acknowledge during the NBA Finals, but should be acknowledged, considering the plight of black head coaches to get to where they are. And it's good to see that things are kind of where they're supposed to be in that regard. But Joe needs to be able to appreciate this is an exclusive club, man. 7 people in history, 7 people have accomplished it. You're one of 7 to do it. And that's incredible. That's just incredible. But Joe is an absolute madman, as I keep saying. I'll share some of the things that he has shared to give you the depth of how crazy he is, why Al Horford calls him, a little wacky, why Drew Holiday called him crazy. And when I asked him, why do you use the word crazy? And he said, because he's crazy. All of that stuff is coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. If you want to go to Major League Baseball games this summer, Red Sox games, go to Fenway, sit in the monster seats if you want. That I've done that. That's actually pretty cool. Go to Gametime. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. That means getting tickets is faster and easier, and prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get the first pitch. So go hang out, cask and flagon, go have a couple of beers. Just wait. Boom. Wait till that first pitch, and now you can get killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. You can save up to 60% off. And it's not just sports, it's concerts, it's comedy, it's theater, whatever is in a venue that's selling these tickets online. You can probably find it on Gametime. The flash deals are exclusive in-app deals that are on select seats. Zone deals, you can choose the section. Gametime picks the seats. You can save money there. The seat views, you get the panoramic views, you get the lowest price guarantee, and your ticket is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Why do I always say injury? Industry. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All the biggest shows around the network are there all day, every day. The debates, the real conversations, real experts, not fake stuff. So go check it out. Joe Mazzulla is, I keep forgetting to put this. The Celtics are the champs. I can put this little belt on my YouTube page. Sorry, people who are listening. We got a nice little cool NBA belt graphic. I do the NBA belt every year. The NBA champions go into the next season with the NBA belt. That's the Celtics. The Celtics have a championship belt right now. that they're going to defend when the season starts. So that's fun. Joe Mazzulla probably wants to defend it, but he'd rather defend a belt every night. I wonder how he'd feel about that concept. Just going out there and defending a belt every night, giving each night some meaning. Derek White loves Joe Mazzulla. And for all of the criticism he's taken all season long, Joe Mazzulla, last season, largely based around his usage of timeouts, which, like everything else that he does, is heavily researched, heavily studied, and there's a method to his madness. There are reasons. Mazzulla might be the most calculating person I've ever seen in the NBA. He has everything mapped out when it comes to, this is the philosophy for using timeouts. This is the philosophy for our substitution pattern. This is the philosophy for every little bit. And when the Celtics had to make changes and bring in Porzingis and bring in Drew Holiday, it cost them Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon. Mazzulla, I don't want to say anybody was okay with Marcus Smart leaving, but Mazzulla went to Derek White. And this is why I think the Celtics were able to say, you know what, we are willing to trade Marcus Smart because Derek White existed. And in his post-game, post-championship interview, Derek White said, when he was asked about Joe Mazzulla, quote, "I love Joe Mazzulla so much. Coming off the year I had, and he gets the job, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to start you," which I wasn't expecting. He was like, "I believe in you, and I trust you. This is going to give you confidence." And from that moment on, I think it changed my whole career. I'd do anything for him. That is the absolute strongest statement a player can make about Joe Mazzulla. Look at Jaylen Brown hugging him. "I loved you from day one, coach." Said that. Jaylen was mic'd up. Jayson Tatum talks about how much he loves Joe Mazzulla. The players love Mazzulla, even though they think he can be a little wacky. But Drew Holiday, yes, he called him crazy, but also Holiday has credited Joe Mazzulla for changing his outlook on defense. Joe Mazzulla, helped Drew Holiday grow defensively. Think about Joe as the offensive guy, right? Everybody wants to say Mazzulla ball. It's all about three-pointers. Everything's offense with him. And some of his greatest coaching has been with the defense and how to deploy players defensively, especially Drew Holiday. And Holiday turns around and is like, yeah, man, this guy made me see the game differently. Now, I am very willing to take a very long, loud, flamboyant victory lap when it comes to Joe Mazzulla. I am ready to just scream for the mountaintops, "I told you so," when it came to Joe Mazzulla, because I always believed that his mentality was the right one for this team. Did he mess up timeouts sometimes? In my opinion, I thought so. But like I said, he's always had a strategy for that. And maybe it's on us to learn from him. Sometimes we have to sit there, and Zach Lowe said the same thing when he was talking to Mazzulla, because he made a timeout joke too. It's like, sometimes we got to sit back and realize, like, oh, yeah, by the way, these guys in the NBA know a crap ton more than we know when it comes to basketball. It's Joe Mazzulla's job to be the coach of the NBA. And we have the audacity to be like, well, I don't know. I know better than he does. Really? Really? Sometimes they make mistakes. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the timeout thing was always like, listen, let the guy do his work. And last year he got the team under the weird circumstances, but I always knew that this guy had his team, that they were behind him, and that he just needed that time to prepare and that time to put his staff together. And I just felt like he would have this team ready. How did he have this team ready? He detailed some of this stuff. Batman scenes with Jayson Tatum, telling the team it's okay to smile during wars, which we're all sitting there listening to Tatum talk about this, and we're like, this was after the Game 4 loss, trying to keep his team loose. And there's another criticism that came out there. When I shared this on the podcast, where I was like, it's very smart for Mazzulla to tell his team to relax. That was absolutely having a pulse on the team. The Celtics had a tendency to play super tight. At the end of game 3, they tightened up. They just get that like, okay, got to finish the job. And their mentality changed a little bit. And he knew they needed to be looser. So he got them to a place where it's like, hey, it's okay. However long it takes, whatever it takes, that's the motto. That meant it's okay. Guys were talking about, we didn't have to win it in 5. We knew we had game 6. We know we had game 7. It's not the end of the world. Just go out there and do it. And people were like, no, that's wrong. That's the wrong mentality. No, it was the right mentality because he knew his team. He knows his team. And he went out there and they played loose. They played free. And they were up by 25 at one point. And they cruised because he knows his team. All right, I'm going to get into the crazy things that Joe did that he revealed. Team building Rubik's Cube without talking to one another. Military training. Going to Costa Rica to tear himself down and build himself back up. All of that stuff is next. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy on America's #1 fantasy sports app. There are more than 5 million people playing PrizePicks, so you know it's a popular app because it's a fun app, but you're playing against the projections. You pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you have a chance to win up to 100 times your money. You could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you are locked in. If you're looking for promotions, they've got you covered every week, from lowering certain player stats on Tuesdays to increase your chances of getting a win. You get your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app. And, you know, there are opportunities to get boosted on select stars in games that you don't find anywhere else. So go check it out. There's even esports in June, every Wednesday and Saturday in June. So you can choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends. That's how much you can play on at PrizePicks. You can even get into esports. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Deposit $100, they give you $100. If you download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, you got to get that first deposit match. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I don't know why I'm doing a radio voice right now, but Locked On NBA has got you covered with all the league's top stories. Rotating hosts all week long. I'm there on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. Wow, that was obnoxious. I'm punchy. It's the end of the week. This is the Thursday episode. Hopefully a special guest for tomorrow. And we'll wrap it up. And maybe a bonus podcast from a duck boat. Fingers crossed. Duck boat podcast. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to be on one. The players love Joe. And I think part of why they love him is because he is a madman. And it's hard not to respect a guy that's willing, as he revealed in the low post, to go to Costa Rica to meet he described his relationship with a good friend and a coaching kind of mentor. And he and his family went to Costa Rica. They spent the week in the jungle. Literally, he said, tear myself down and build myself back up. This is after losing to Miami, where he expressed a regret because he thought he let Al Horford down, which is why Al Horford probably loves the guy. He said he felt bad. He felt like he needed to heal himself from the feeling that he had let Al Horford down. So he ends up going to Costa Rica for a week. And listen, the willingness to do stuff like this and to his family going with him, I mean, wow, what a family building exercise that is. A lot of people go to, Six Flags. They're going to Costa Rica to rebuild themselves. But listen, that's the limits. When I talk about balance at the beginning and I say Joe might not have all the balance in the world, because this is to him, he's like, no, I have to do this. I don't know, man. I'm not willing to do stuff like that. Maybe that's why he's a championship level head coach. And I don't even know why I said championship level. He's a championship head coach. Because you got to have the willingness to test yourself. And that's what he does. He's a very big test yourself guy. And he tests his team. This whole year has been about military training. And they brought in a Green Beret who lost a leg, I believe, and went back to war. Is the only guy who ever went back to the battlefield. And he's coming in talking to the players like, if you're a basketball player, and you're like, oh, my leg's sore, I might want to sit out. And this guy walks in, you're like, maybe I'll just hit the weight room instead. That type of stuff is kind of like meaningful. He said this on Part of My Take, where he watched the Dark Knight interrogation scene between the Joker and Batman, where Batman, he's doing this with Jayson Tatum. And it's about expectations and the pressure. And the scene, the part of the scene where he highlighted was Batman saying, why are you trying to kill me? And the Joker laughs, is like, I don't want to kill you. Like, I need you. You complete me. And the message, like he goes into that movie, that scene, and he's telling Jayson Tatum, the pressure, the expectations, they're not trying to kill you. You need them. They complete you. Embrace it. That's like wild. That some old school coaches might just say like, hey man, embrace the noise. And he's like, no, watch this movie scene. And here's the parallel between the Joker and you. It's wild. He described the exercises. He talked about cross training and what he put these guys through. 4 teams of 3 to basically create, like, put a Rubik's Cube type puzzle together. But one guy couldn't walk. They had to walk the length of the court to do it, but one guy couldn't walk, and none of them could talk. It was nonverbal communication. And all of that is part of the, hey, we're not always going to be able to talk to each other. It's going to be loud on the road, right? Game 3 in Dallas, super loud. I was there, American Airlines Center, just madness. And that PA announcer is annoying as all hell. Man, that guy is annoying. And the rims are mic'd up, but I don't know if they're mic'd up or if somebody's hitting a sound effect because it doesn't always match. So I don't know what the hell's going on. It's all noise. It's distracting. But that exercise of nonverbal communication, being able to figure out how to talk to one another without talking to one another, that's for that moment. It's wild. Who thinks of that stuff? Joe Mazzulla thinks of that stuff. And he keeps things interesting. I don't there's an edit going around where Joe and I are, it's the tail end of our interaction where he says, have you ever seen Spider-Man? And it's my voice saying, which one? And he talks about Into the Spider-Verse. What you don't remember from that day is Jaylen Brown mentioning Spider-Man, Jayson Tatum mentioning Spider-Man, players in the interview room all mentioning Spider-Man, and we're all looking at each other and we're like, is this like a concerted effort? Yeah, it was. There was a stretch of like a week where the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, got the guys, he gave them a word, and they all had to use it in their post-game media availabilities. And that's just a way for them to get through the middle of the season. I forget what the other words were. I have to go back and look. But I remember a couple of games where I was like, are these guys all like, is there something going on? And yeah, it ended up they were playing a little game with us so they can get through media in like December and January through the doldrums and just have some fun with the media. Which, I mean, sure, why not? And now, as I wrap up the show, Joe says he's moved on to studying repeat winners and teams that get back to the finals and teams that win multiple championships. And this is a big opportunity for him because he's going to be going to the Olympics. He's going to be there to support Tatum and Holiday and maybe Derek White. I don't know if it's official yet that Kawhi Leonard can't make it, but Derek White will probably be the replacement, which is awesome. And it's an opportunity to talk to Steve Kerr and talk to guys who have gotten there and talk about the challenges. Why is it so hard? What is it about this grind? And if this is the hardest thing that they're going to go through now, right? They've gone through the hardest thing of winning a championship, and now come the expectations. And the talking heads are already blah, blah, blahing about the Celtics being a one-and-done team, which is, if somebody's talking about the Celtics, now this is the only one they're going to win, that's absolute crap, by the way. And that's another topic. I don't want to do all my shows about stupid things media people say, but this is the next level of scrutiny these guys are going to find, because the Celtics are actually the only team that's built to kind of withstand this stretch of new CBA, because guys are under contract. And as long as they keep winning and bringing in money, they can keep this thing going. But there's a challenge to that now. People saying you can't do it again. People cutting you down again. The next set of media narratives just keeps on coming. And your off seasons are shorter. There are teams that have been off since April. They've had all of April, basically, half of April, May, June off. These guys have been playing. And now there are guys who are playing into the summer. There's not a lot of time to rest and recover and recharge. You got to go out and spend another season. And how do you handle that? Not only how do you handle Kristaps' surgery, how do you handle Jayson Tatum going through an Olympic run? And how do you handle everybody having a shorter offseason? How do you manage your substitutions, your rotations, and all of that stuff? Your depth becomes more important. How do you coach this team next year without saying the same things you said this year, right? One of the biggest challenges he's going to have is avoiding repeating himself, because the more you repeat yourself, the more people tune you out. It's hard because you don't want to have Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the back of the room going, oh, here goes, mouthing along with the words that he's saying, because then that loses its effectiveness. So that's a challenge for him. There are a lot of challenges. Al Horford's going to retire at some point. He'll be back next year, but he's going to retire at some point. Kristaps Porzingis is still going to have injury issues. What do you do there? How do you manage that? Do you remake your team based on who is around? Do you have to make a trade? Does something not work anymore? Did somebody's ego get too big? All of these possibilities. You never know. But I tell you, I do trust Joe Mazzulla to figure that stuff out, because one thing that he's going to do this summer is study all of the issues that these teams have faced. He's going to be as prepared and meticulous as any coach for this next step. I appreciate Joe Mazzulla. I think Yeah, he's a madman for sure. And he probably accepts that and he understands that about himself. He's not your typical head coach in the NBA, but he's a champion. That's for damn sure. And the guys love him. And I hope Celtics fans have a deeper respect, not just for him, but for the different line of thinking. As he likes to say, and this is the final thing, success looks different on different nights. And just because his path to success and the way he achieves success isn't what we've always known, doesn't mean it's wrong. He has now earned the benefit of the doubt. Next year's coaching job is going to be incredibly important. Something I'm going to be talking about for sure as the offseason rolls on and we get into next season. But appreciate Joe Mazzulla. He is a unique character, but he's genuine. Relationships are important to him. He cares, and the guys care about him, and that's the most important thing. That's why I'm doing this podcast in front of a photo of the Celtics championship floor with green and white confetti on it. That's why. Much more appreciation of this championship run. I'll just do individuals, so I'll run through the whole team. Maybe when we get towards the end of the bench, we'll do a combined episode, but lots to talk about. And again, hopefully a bonus episode from a duck boat, or at least portions of a bonus episode from a duck boat. I hope. So we'll see. Subscribe if you can. Buy my book. It's called Built Different. It's available on triumphbooks.com/CelticsWin. Use the code Celtics24 to get 25% off, or just go pick one up. It's got to be in stores by now. There's a quick turnaround. So it's at your local bookstore. It's at your supermarkets. It's at BJ's. It's at Sam's Club in the New England area. So go check it out there. Order it online if you're outside the area. And again, signed copies coming down the road for sure. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing the Locked On Celtics podcast. Spread the word. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.